Hey, there is a call for you. My boss called out from his office. I glanced up from my lunch, puzzled. It wasn't often someone called me at work. Actually, it almost never happened. Quickly finishing the last bite of my sandwich, I got up and headed to the office. Dave wasn't one to appreciate the phone lines being used for personal matters. When I stepped inside, he gestured toward the far end of the trailer, where a few computers sat alongside the blueprints for the housing project we were working on. These weren't exactly luxury homes we were building, more like cookie-cutter suburban houses for folks chasing their piece of the American dream. The market was supposedly thriving, even though there were still plenty of empty houses just a few miles away. I mulled this over as I made my way to the phone. Picking up the receiver, I pressed the blinking button for the line that had been holding. "This is Ham," I said, a slight unease creeping into my voice. The only people who had this number were my coworkers or my landlady, Mrs. Sanchez, and if she was calling, it meant something serious. "Petey, is that really you?" a voice asked, someone from my past. Without saying anything, I hung up the phone. I didn't exactly run out, but I didn't waste any time either. When Dave came outside, I was throwing up over the side of the steps. "You get some bad news?" he asked, his voice full of concern. Dave was a good guy. He usually stayed out of personal matters, but I was the one guy on the crew who never called in sick or caused any trouble. I just nodded and kept throwing up. Thank God I'd had peanut butter for lunch and not something worse. Dave lit a cigarette and watched me until I was done. When I finally stopped, he asked again. "That was my brother," I said, spitting to get rid of the taste. "Someone die?" he asked, cautiously. I could tell he was wondering if my problems were about to spill over into the job. I shook my head. "I don't know. Don't care," I said, finally pulling myself together. "You running from something, Ham?" he asked, his voice steady but firm. "I run a clean crew. I don't judge, but if you're on the run, I can't keep you." I shook my head again. "Nothing like that, Dave. I just left Denver without a trace. Didn't want anything from my old life, and no one from that life wanted me. I don't know how Billy tracked me down, but he's got nothing I want to hear." Dave winced. "Sounds like it's pretty bad," he said. "You think it's gonna follow you here?" "I hope he gets the message that I don't want to talk to him or anyone else from Denver," I replied, my voice hardening. Dave shrugged. "Families like that," he said quietly, taking a drag from his cigarette. "They'll hound you until they get what they want, then keep coming back until you give in. You've got two choices. You can keep running, or you can stand your ground. Whatever happened in Denver must have been bad if you walked away from family. They may not always be great, but at least they're all we've got sometimes." I shook my head. "Not my family. The only thing I can count on them for is screwing me over." "So why are they calling you?" he asked, curiosity in his voice. "Someone probably needs something, kidney, bone marrow, some other thing I don't care about," I muttered. "So what now?" he asked, finishing his cigarette and flicking it into the bucket. "Are you gonna run, or are you gonna stand? You're a good worker, Ham. I'd hate to lose you, but you could get this job anywhere. On the other hand, you've got your life here. Friends, stability, seniority on the crew. If you leave, you'd have to start over. Think about it." I nodded. "I will," I promised. "Good," he said. "Take the rest of the day off. There's no way I want you operating a nail gun if you're this messed up." I was about to argue, but I saw the look on his face and nodded. "Thanks, Dave," I said quietly instead. "I appreciate you looking out for me." "You?" he asked, surprised. "I was thinking about the crew. If you drilled your hand with the gun by accident, Larry'd piss his pants, Clyde'll pass out, and Jerry would absolutely start talking about getting a lawyer and suing the company." He was smiling a little when he said it, but he might as well have thrown his arms around me and hugged me for days. I could tell he was worried about me. I laughed and then went to pack up. I got in my truck and pulled out of the job site for the drive home. On the way, I turned on the radio and started to think about how this had all started for me. Linda Cooper had been my high school sweetheart. We'd met when she was a freshman and I was a year ahead of her. We fell in love, and we were inseparable until I went away to college. I'd gotten an academic scholarship to UCLA. It was too far to come home for the weekends, but close enough that I'd still hear all the hometown news, or so I thought. I came home at Christmas and things were off. I shook it off as people just being used to me being gone from the house, since it faded after a few days. That feeling never quite went away, though. I suppose I should go into the backgrounds a bit. My name is Peter Hamilton. I used to get called Petey growing up, but since I left Denver that last time, I'd started going by Ham. At the moment I'd gotten in my truck, I was 24. I had a younger brother named Billy who just cost me a peanut butter sandwich and had cost me a whole lot more over the years. I also had an older brother named Mike. Mikey, Petey, and Billy. Mike was 2 years older than me and Billy was 2 years younger. I'd been eager to see Linda during my time at UCLA. I wasn't living like a monk, but I kept my party time to Friday nights, and I never got so drunk that I woke up with missing time. I also never woke up next to a girl. I got to be something of a joke on campus for never hooking up. I had Linda waiting for me though, so I took it as well as I could. That first day I got back to town, Billy was tasked with helping me move back in. "So, you tapping the LA parade?" he asked bluntly as soon as we took my bags up to the room we'd shared together forever. I looked at him strangely. "No," I said, like it was the only possible answer. "I have Linda here waiting for me. I'm not gonna cheat on her. I'd rather get hit by a truck than break her heart like that." He looked disappointed for a minute. "For real?" he asked, incredulous. "It's not like she'd ever find out, right? Never even looked?" I shrugged. "She probably wouldn't find out, but I'd know I did it and I'd feel like she deserved better than some a-hole that's gonna hook up behind her back." I smiled at him. "You'll understand someday. You'll meet a girl that's worth more to you than all the random hookups in the world, and you'll do the same." I chalked up his disappointment to him wanting to live vicariously through his big brother, and we talked a lot about my time in LA, college, seeing celebrities, surfing, and a dozen other topics until it was time for dinner. Dad worked in construction as a foreman, and Mike worked with him. We'd all worked with him during the summers, but Mike had gone full-time. He had his own apartment at this point, but frequently came home for dinner since there was always a place set for him. I noticed that he was a little warmer to me than he'd been before I went to college, but that was just an addition to the strange little behaviors I was picking up on all day. Mom kept giving me worried looks, but she smiled whenever she saw me looking. None of it sank in though. I just assumed she was worried that I wasn't eating right. I dropped a little weight after initially picking up some of the freshman 15, so she was commenting that I looked thin. "How's school treating you?" Mike asked, shaking my hand as we sat down to eat. "Good mostly," I said with a grin. I was happy to be back. I tried to call Linda to see if she wanted to come for dinner, but I hadn't been able to get through, so it was just the five of us. My life's not nearly as exciting as Billy was hoping, but I'm sure he'll get over it. "Oh?" Mike asked, interested. "What have you been talking to Billy about?" He asked if I was sniffing around any of the girls out there. I laughed. I think he was expecting that, Linda, and I would call it quits when I went to college. He looked at Billy, who shrugged but didn't say anything. "Have you spoken with Linda?" Mom asked delicately. "Not yet. She knew I was getting in today, so I'm hoping she'll stop by later, but I couldn't reach her earlier." She nodded, and we got onto other topics after that. I was prodded into telling everyone about LA and some of the friends I'd made and the things I'd been doing for fun. Dad and Mike talked about work and Billy mentioned that he still hadn't been expelled from school, but he'd get there someday. It went like that for about a week. I finally got together with Linda, but things seemed strained. She wasn't used to having me around all the time. We spent a few days together, and then her parents were taking her to have Christmas with her grandparents in Kansas City, so I wouldn't see her again until just before New Year's. We exchanged Christmas presents and said goodbye. We were both extremely sad, but there wasn't much either of us could do about it. I put her gift under the tree when I got home and went to my room. I'd been looking forward to spending time with Linda, but she was stuck going out of town. I was moody and withdrawn for the rest of the day, busying myself with some of the reading for next semester and trying not to hate her parents for keeping us apart. Mom came in late in the afternoon. "Did you talk to Linda?" she asked delicately. I nodded. "I really don't want to talk about it right now," I said with a sigh. "Sometimes these things work out for the best, Petey. It's not the end of the world." "I know," I said sadly. "It just sucks. I've waited for months to be near her, and her parents turn around and decide to drive to Kansas City to have Christmas with her grandparents. I was hoping to have more time with her." She blinked at that. "Oh," she said, sounding a little surprised. "I thought you two might have had a fight since you've been up here since you came home." I shook my head. "No, nothing like that. Just, I was really looking forward to seeing her, and now I'm only going to get a couple of days with her before I go back." She nodded and her frown told me that she sympathized. She patted my shoulder and got up, saying that she needed to get things started for dinner and asked me if I'd run to the store for a few things she needed. When I got back, the house was tense, but everyone was treating me like I was made of glass, so word had quickly spread. By Christmas Eve, things were mostly normal. Billy was spending the evening with his girlfriend's family for their tradition, and I was glad he'd found someone. I remember hoping that he'd find the same thing that I had with Linda and being happy for him. He said that she wasn't ready to face the family here yet, but he was sure that I'd meet her soon enough. Christmas passed. New Year's came with a phone call from Linda, telling me that her parents wanted to stay a few more days, but that she'd try to pressure them to come back in time to see me off. My mood sunk even lower at that revelation, and I found myself sitting at home alone for the countdown. Mom and Dad went to a work party every year, and Mike went with them with his new girlfriend. Billy had his New Year's out with his girl, and I had the Times Square countdown to keep me company. I got back on the plane to LA 2 days later. Linda sent me a text saying that they were on their way back and asked what time my flight was. She confirmed that she'd be getting in about an hour after I took off, but promised to see me for spring break. So I went back to school and did what I could to make the time fly. I was taking a 4-year degree in engineering, but I was trying to pick up extra courses so I could do it in 3. Linda was going to college locally, so I wanted to get back to Denver as soon as I could so we could start our life together. I was really that stupid. Spring break came and my workload was just too much to go home for the week. Everyone was understanding and upbeat. Mom said she was very proud that I was taking it so seriously. Mike had flunked out and gone to work with Dad almost before he started, so it made her happy to know that I was taking a different path. I was looking forward to the end of term for several reasons. I was waiting on my marks. I'd need to do well to maintain my scholarship. I was eager to get back home because Linda's prom was fast approaching, and I was looking forward to spending the evening with her. She told me that she had everything taken care of and I didn't have to do a thing. So I got myself packed and headed home to my worst nightmare. Mike picked me up at the airport instead of Mom or Billy. I was glad to see him now that I wasn't his annoying little brother. We got into his car and drove back to Mom and Dad's place slowly. You know, he said awkwardly, if things at Mom and Dad's get to be too much to handle, you can give me a call and stay at my place. I know it's not always fun. I smiled at him. Thanks, I said to him. It's cool though. I haven't been home since Christmas. It'll take a little time for things to get stale. Still, he insisted. If you need to get out, even if it's just for a few days, let me know. No questions asked. I nodded. I appreciate it, Mike, I said lightly. He dropped me off and went back to work. When I got home, Mom was acting particularly nuts, fussing over me. She told me I could unpack later, but that she wanted to spend some time with me, so I helped make dinner with her. That night would be memorable for all of us. Linda had promised to be there for dinner, and I was looking forward to seeing her. We put dinner on the table, and Billy arrived home from wherever he'd been to announce that they were there. I walked into the hall to say hello, and Dad was a step behind me. True to his word, Billy was there. All right, but so was Linda. I opened my mouth to speak, and the two of them deliberately turned their eyes away from me and kissed deeply and passionately. I stood there in shock while they made out right in front of me. Shock turned to rage, and I launched myself at the cocky little scumsucker. That's when Dad grabbed me from behind. He was bigger than me, stronger, and had been on the wrestling team in high school, so there was no way I was going to beat him, but I tried. Get off me! I roared in rage, my face turning red as I watched my world come to an end. The two of them looked at me without the slightest trace of shame at what they'd been doing. Calm down, before you get yourself hurt, he said sharply. I wasn't listening. What the hell did it matter if I got hurt? What was going to compare to this? I wanted to kill them both. That hate was a living thing, and it hungered for their blood. Fine. You don't want to listen? We'll do it the hard way. He shifted his grip, wrapping an arm around my throat, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. There were black spots in front of my eyes, and everything went black. When I came around, I was on the sofa and the four of them were there. Linda and Billy were sitting on the love seat together, and Dad was leaning against the entry to the hall, poised to grab me again, if I should lunge for the happy couple. Son, Dad said in his least menacing growl, I'm sure you have a lot of questions about this. I sat up and looked around the room. They all looked at me with varying degrees of regret. Just one, I admitted. You all knew about this? Mike too? I was surprised that my voice was as calm as it was. I knew he was poised to put me down again if I got upset now. Yes, Mom said. Please try to understand. No one wanted to hurt you. I don't care, I said and got up slowly. You're dead to me, I said, starting across the room. I looked around, taking in each of them. Dad pushed himself away from the wall and gave me a warning look. Just calm down and talk it out, he told me. What's there to talk about? I asked him coldly. You always said when something bad happens, family comes together and protects our own. You protected your son and your new daughter from the outsider. You all pulled together at Christmas to fool me about where I stood. Not much point in talking it out. I hate each and every one of you and I hope you each die. Now, get out of my way. He rolled his eyes. And you wonder why no one told you? You overreact to everything. You always did. You've always been a chicken. Just man up. You went off to college. Did you really think your relationship was going to survive that? I shook my head and tried to move past him. I wanted to get my things, call a cab and go to the bus station to buy a ticket back to LA. Fortunately, I was good at tutoring, so I had enough money for that. I couldn't count on anything from my family. He grabbed my shoulders and shoved me back into the living room. I glared at him coldly and tried to walk past, only to be shoved back. When I tried again and he reached to grab me, I retaliated with a sharp kick to his midsection. He crumpled to the ground, and I struck him a few more times, ensuring he understood my frustration. Before leaving, I delivered one final kick to emphasize my point. I headed upstairs, grabbed my phone, and called a cab. I packed my belongings carefully, making sure not to leave anything behind. When I came back down, Mom and Billy were helping Dad up, and Mom was nearly in hysterics. Blood was pouring out of his nose, and he was groaning and coughing and sounded miserable. There was no sign of Linda, but at that point, I didn't care. I was outside with my suitcases, waiting for my cab when Mike showed up from work. "They told you?" he asked, taking in the bags and the fact that I was waiting for a ride on the street, so I wasn't even on the property. "Look, Petey," he started before I cut him off. "Screw off," I said. "Your father probably needs to go to the hospital." I jerked my thumb in the direction of the door. "Your family needs you. What are you gonna do?" he asked, not moving toward the house. "Go back to LA, finish my degree, get a gun, shoot any of you if you come near me ever again. On second thought, I'll probably get the gun first. One of you is bound to be stupid enough to think you can get me to hug and make up before I graduate." "Pete," he said uncomfortably, "come stay with me for a few days. Let this calm down and we'll talk about it. You knew about my piece of shit brother hooking up with my 304 girlfriend behind my back?" I asked him pointedly. "It wasn't like that," he said. "It was rough on both of them, keeping you in the dark." "I'll bet," I said darkly. "It must have been hard on Billy, seeing her pretend to be my girlfriend. Must have made him think that she was cheating on him. I can only imagine what it must have been like for him to have his own brother make out with his girl. What kind of a brother does something like that, right? 304. He looked miserable to be caught in the middle of this. We were his brothers. As much as he wanted to strangle us sometimes, we were supposed to be family. "All right, so you're not gonna calm down anytime soon," he admitted. "Just come stay with me. Stay for the summer if you need to, but don't leave it like this." I shrugged. "What's there to stay for, Mike? You all knew that she was with him at Christmas, and you hid it from me. She lied about going away with her parents so that her and Billy Boy could fool around without me getting in the way. Mom covered for them, Dad covered for them, you covered for them." "Yeah," he said. "It's screwed up, but you don't have anywhere else to go, and you don't have a plan. Stay with me, work for the summer, and then go back to LA with some cash and a plan, at least." I shook my head. "So that everyone can lay hands on me the next time they want to dump on me." "Thanks. No. It won't be like that," he promised. "I'll help you get a job. I promise that I won't tell Mom or Dad where you are or when you're going back. I won't tell them anything." I was torn. I didn't know what to do. I was running on rage and hurt, and I wasn't going to be able to keep that up indefinitely. I was about to answer him when Billy stormed out of the house. He'd been careful to stay clear of me after I dropped Dad, but I guess he was feeling brave now that Mike was there. "You broke Dad's nose, a-hole," he snarled, walking over to us with purpose. "Go inside, Billy," Mike told him. "You gonna pick his side?" He gaped. "He just kicked Dad in the balls and then kicked him in the face when he went down, and you're telling me to go back in the house? You should be holding him down for me to mess him up for what he just did. Just go in the house, Billy." He snapped. "What did you expect? You should have told him last summer when you started." "Last summer?" I said, looking at Mike. "I'd been here all summer." That meant. I shook my head. "And you a-holes thought you could talk it out and I'd be okay with it? Tell your mother." "She got her wish," I said. "She always said she wanted a daughter. She just had to trade me in to get one. Hope she's proud of her." I looked at Billy. "Don't you have a 304 to keep an eye on?" I blinked last summer, and she was someone else's 304. "You've been out here 2 minutes. I'd imagine she's kissing your father's balls better by now." Now it was Billy's turn to lunge at me. Mike grabbed him and pulled him back toward the house. "Just go inside." He snarled and shoved Billy in the direction of the front door. "For once in your life, shut your mouth and put your head down. You could at least pretend like it bothered you to snipe his girl out from under him." He finally managed to get him to go into the house and came back to talk to me. "You're not going to stay, are you?" he asked, taking in the look on my face. "Last summer," I repeated. "She was cheating on me with him before I even left? Huh? And everyone in the family is cool with it?" "I wouldn't exactly say we're cool with it," Mike said carefully. "Good enough that no one warned me at Christmas that it was over," I pointed out. "Good enough that no one told me before I left so that I could find someone out there," I added. He frowned. "I didn't know until you were in LA," he told me. The plan was to tell you at Christmas, so you'd have time to cope before you went back. But Linda chickened out at the last minute and told you she was going to her grandparents' place. When you didn't come back for spring break, that put it off for another couple of months. Mom put her foot down and told Billy that if he didn't tell you, she would. I nodded. That's very charitable of her, I said with a minimum of sarcasm. He nodded. I get it. You feel like everyone's against you. What were we supposed to do, though? It's Billy's responsibility to tell you that he's done you up dirty, not mine. Not Mom's and not Dad's. Maybe not, I admitted. It doesn't change the fact that everyone kept it from me, though. As parents, they have a responsibility to ensure their kids face the consequences of their actions. Instead of holding Billy accountable, he grabbed me forcefully and insulted me when I refused to shake Billy's hand and let it go. That's Dad, he said. He's always been a bit of an a-hole when it came to Billy. Why do you think I moved out? I really didn't give it much thought before, but now, I figure it's so that you could have a girlfriend without someone in the house trying to steal her, I said bitterly. He shrugged. It was because Dad favors Billy. I finally moved out around Halloween. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just told them that since I was paying rent here anyway, I might as well just get my own place. The money I was paying Dad for rent was going right into Billy's pocket, and you know what he was spending it on? I rolled my eyes at the thought of how many dates Mike had sent Billy on with my girlfriend. All right, I said finally. I'll come stay with you for a few days, at least. If one of them shows up to try to talk to me, I'm gone. He nodded and clapped me on the shoulder. Good, he said, relieved. He picked up one of my suitcases and we got them to the car. I called and canceled my cab, and we drove over to his place. He had a 2-bedroom place, and there was already a bed made up in the second bedroom. You were expecting me? I asked. I knew today was going to be bad, he admitted. Between you and me, I think Billy is a miserable little shit for what he did. He's still got a year before he graduates, but once he does, I'm hoping they throw him out into the real world and he'll straighten out. He'll end up with a job working with you, I predicted. He'll keep living at home, and they won't even ask him to buy groceries. Yeah, he'll end up living there until they die and leave him the house, he conceded. I'm actually thinking about getting back into school and looking for a better job, so I don't have to put up with his shit once he starts working. I settled in, and Mike took a phone call from home. After he was done, he came to talk to me. Let's take some pictures of your neck, he said. Why? I asked. Mom said Dad's furious and talking about pressing charges for you busting his nose. She's trying to talk him out of it, but he's ranting about teaching you a lesson. I rolled my eyes, and we took pictures of my neck which had some signs of swelling. I told him I'd probably have other bruises tomorrow from him grabbing me from behind. I got him to send copies to my phone, and then I waited until he was talking on the phone again to copy them to my laptop and save them there too. Over the next few days, there was an agreement that his charges would be countered with me swearing out a complaint, so the matter stopped there. I still wouldn't speak to any of them, but Mike passed the word along. Mike also got me a job with a friend of his at a restaurant. It wasn't glamorous work. I was a dishwasher. The hours were long, the work was hard, and the pay was low, but it kept me busy, and the restaurant kept me far enough away from the rest of them that I never worried that they'd come in to eat there by chance. I put most of my money aside except for what I paid Mike for rent and what I ate in groceries. He brought home care packages from Mom a few times, but I'd never touched them. I'd microwave a can of soup before I'd eat from her kitchen, the same kitchen that fed Billy. I told him that, and he must have passed that along because they stopped after that. I never asked about them, and I didn't have much of a life for him to tell them about, so it all worked out. I met Mike's girlfriend and she seemed nice, but I was pretty bitter, so I made myself scarce so they could have time to themselves. I'd put in earbuds and read most nights. I wanted to get a lot of the reading done so that I could fast-track my degree. I was hoping to do enough this year and take summer courses next year so I wouldn't have to stay for the 4th year. It was the end of July when I get the visit that would send me back to LA early. My mother was waiting for me when I was through at work. I'd bought a cheap bicycle and was unlocking it when she spoke. Petey, can I talk to you? She asked, startling me. I had the bike lock half raised to use as a weapon before I realized who it was. What are you doing here? I asked warily. I came to see how you were doing, she said tentatively. Go home, Mrs. Hamilton, I said, purposely refusing to call her mother. Just talk to me, sweetie, she begged. About what? I sneered and finished getting my bike ready for the ride home. I'm worried about you, she admitted. Really? I asked sarcastically. Yes, really, she snapped, starting to get upset. You're hurt and angry, and you don't understand. You're right, I said. I don't understand. I don't understand how you two could stand by while my brother stabbed me in the back and did nothing to stop him or punish him or warn me that it was coming. You felt like you had to take sides, and you chose to side with the son that did wrong. I don't get that. He took the woman I loved, and you stood by and let him do it. Then you stood behind him, and that took away my mother and father. That left Mike. You know Mike's about the only person in the world that I trust, and he's the only person that could have told you where I was working. He's worried too, she said, pleading. He sees you getting more bitter and withdrawn all the time. He doesn't know what to do. You work and sleep. That's all you do. Because that's all I have, I told her. You have a family that loves you, she reminded me. That's touching, I said dryly. Does my father still think I'm weak, or is he finally convinced I've toughened up? I'm not here on his behalf, she said, trying to steer me away from dangerous topics. I'm here because I don't want you to leave thinking that there's nothing here for you to come back to. I stared at her blankly. I'm not coming back, I told her. I'll get my degree, and then look for work in LA or somewhere else. Screw Denver. Hell, making up with the family, and screw whatever bullshit fantasy you have of all of us having Thanksgiving together with Billy and his happy 304 holding hands and grinning like idiots while your husband carves the turkey and you insist on us saying grace for some stupid reason. You and Billy are brothers, she said. As angry as you are, someday I have faith that you'll remember that and find it in your heart to forgive him. I shook my head. Not anymore. We're not. There's no way. They were screwing around behind my back last summer before I went to college. So it's not like some bullshit romance story where they both missed the same person and turned to each other for support. Maybe if Billy had cancer and was dying and she abandoned him rather than stick it out, then I might let him think I forgive him on his deathbed. Maybe. She looked sad about that. I hope that your feelings start to change once you find someone that makes you happy, she said gently. I had someone that made me happy. I said harshly. If I find someone else that I could ever trust, I'd never let any of you within 100 miles of her. I wouldn't worry too much though. The two women I trusted most turned out to be so stunningly good at lying to me that I'll never trust another one again. I wanted to tell you. She looked upset. I finally told Billy that he had to tell you or I would. And instead of telling me, he waited until I came to say hi and deliberately turned and made out with her in front of me, I told her. She nodded. He's still young, she said tactfully. He wasn't very mature about how he reacted, but then neither were you. I tried to walk away. Your douchebag husband wouldn't let me leave the room. I can't get much more mature than trying to leave without causing more of a scene. I understand though. Billy's your baby. You and your husband always favored him, always loved him more. Mike told me that he got out because he was sick of paying rent and watching the money handed over to Billy right away. How many fantastic dates did you guys send Billy on with Mike's money? She winced at hearing that. Your brother and Linda are in love, she said. Linda didn't love you. I know you loved her, but she was feeling trapped. You were going away to college. So instead of breaking up with me or, God forbid, sharing her feelings with me, she lied to me for a year while she was cuddled up to my brother. I finished the though. Does she sleep in his room now that everything's out in the open? She cringed again, but didn't answer. I figured that meant she did. I know it's a lot to ask, she said, but try to see things from the other side of things. You met Mike's girlfriend, right? What if you fell in love with her? Then I'd slit my throat to eliminate the temptation to betray my brother like that. I told her evenly. I'd never confess that love to her or him or God or myself, and if I couldn't help it, I'd move far away and keep away from her so that I'd never be tempted to act on it. Billy didn't have that option, she said gently. He was only 16. Fair enough, I shrugged. I don't particularly care at this point. She's his problem now, and they're your problem. My only problem is that you tracked me down here. That means you'll be back. So if you'll be so kind as to watch my bike for a minute, I need to go tell them I quit. She looked stricken at that. Petey, don't quit. I just wanted to talk. I won't bother you here again, I promise. Just talk to me. I'll come over to Mike's so that you don't have to see Billy or Linda. I just don't want to lose you over this. I didn't answer. I just propped my bike against the wall and went back inside to let them know that I needed to quit. They asked me if I could stay until the end of the week, and I agreed to that, since I was scheduled anyway. When I came back out, she was looking at me with the same look she had when I'd hurt myself on the playground when I was small. You don't believe me? She asked, devastated. The currency of promises is trust, I told her. When you covered up Billy's antics, you threw mine away. She nodded, getting a feel for how broken things were. What will you do? She asked. Leave, I told her. Maybe I'll stick at R with Mike for another few weeks, but that'll be strictly to say goodbye to the city. Will you come back for Christmas? She pleaded with me. No, I said. I don't ever want to see Billy or Linda or your husband again. You want them around for Christmas, so I'll stay in LA. At least think about it? She begged. You might find yourself feeling less anger by the time December rolls around. Maybe once enough time passes, these wounds will heal. Maybe, but after the burns heal, you don't go back to playing with fire. I told her and got on my bike. It was nice talking with you, Mrs. Hamilton, but you're a married woman. You shouldn't be seen talking to me alone. My family has a reputation for not having respect for other people's relationships. You should go home to your family. I left her standing there and pedaled off. I had 4 more shifts at the restaurant and then I was done. I'd made arrangements to get an apartment this year, and it would be ready for me when I got there. It was actually mine as of August 1st, so by the time I was done at the restaurant, I could move right in. I needed to get some kitchen stuff and furniture, but I wasn't too worried about that. I could only sit my butt in one spot at a time, and I wasn't planning on entertaining. I got back to Mike's and let myself in. He was seated on the sofa with his girlfriend, so I didn't want to hang around, but I wanted to let him know what happened. Your mother was waiting for me when I left work tonight, I told him. He looked surprised by that. She was? He asked. What did she want? She wants me to be part of the family again, I said and shrugged. How did she find out where you worked? He asked. I shrugged again. I kind of figured she heard from you, I admitted. All I told her was that I'd helped you find a job at a restaurant. She must have figured I'd set you up with Tony since he owns the place, he said sourly. What are you gonna do? I put in my notice. He asked me to stay the rest of the week, which I can do. I've got my apartment in LA waiting for me. I was planning on going early anyway to get the place set up, so this is only a couple of weeks difference. He nodded. What else did she say? He asked. She wanted me to see it from Billy's point of view and asked what I'd do if I fell in love with you, Mary, I told her, drawing her into the conversation for the first time. I generally left our conversations to greetings in the past, but I figured she was about to be family so long as Mike kept her away from Billy, so she should be included in the family talks. Me? She asked. What did you tell her? That I'd kill myself before I'd do that to my brother, and that if I couldn't deny those feelings, I'd move far away to keep from being tempted. But you are moving far away, she pointed out. Yeah, but that's because I'm going to college out there, I said. I think she was hoping that I'd see what motivated him and I'd soften my position. Sounds like she's in for a long wait, she commented. I nodded. Yeah, Mike's the only family I have left, I said with a rueful shrug. The rest of them share some DNA, but they're not family anymore. That's really sad, she complained. I can't imagine life without family. It takes some getting used to, I admitted. I think I'm going to turn in though. I don't want to bring down your night. Have you decided when you're leaving? Mike asked. Not yet, I admitted. I'll look up flights tonight and decide. He nodded. Let me know, and I'll take the day off and drive you out. Thanks, I said appreciatively and moved toward my room, waving goodnight to them both. I decided on a Friday flight so that Mike would be able to get a long weekend, and I booked it with my credit card. I finished out the week without a repeat visit from my mother, but now I was on the lookout for the rest of the former family members. None of them came though. Mike and Mary and I spent a little more time together that week, and I got to understand what he saw in her. I wasn't falling in love with her, but I was seeing that she made him happy. Part of me was jealous, not in the sense that I wanted Mary, but more that he was happy, and I remembered what it was like to feel that way. I was packing Thursday night when he came to my door and knocked on the frame. Hey, he said when he had my attention. Got everything? He asked to start the conversation. I think so, I told him. There's a few things in the bathroom, but I'll get them in the morning before I pack the last few things. He nodded and tossed me an envelope. I caught it instinctively and looked at him curiously. Go ahead and open it, he nodded. I did, and it was full of money. I looked at him, surprised. What's this? Just a little something to help set up your apartment. I also made a list of all the things that I needed when I moved in here that I hadn't thought to pick up, he told me. That's in there too. Thanks, Mike, I said, touched that he was willing to help me out this much. Don't thank me too much, he said with a smirk. I'm going to send a bill to Mom and Dad for at least part of it. I chuckled at that. Send them a bill for double, I told him. He shrugged. Most of it is just the money you've paid me for rent, he admitted. You haven't caused me any trouble, and you help out around the house. I honestly felt guilty about taking your money. I was glad you talked me into staying, I told him. If I ever came back to Denver, it'd be to see you, not them. I know, he said with a strange little smile. You're never going to forgive them, are you? He asked. I shrugged. Linda and Billy? Never. The parents? I don't know. They sided with Billy when they should have taken him to the woodshed. They screwed me over, put you in the middle of it, and all to protect precious Billy. He nodded. Give it some time, and then try talking to Mom when you don't feel quite so pissed off. I'll think about it. She wants me to come back for Christmas. I was thinking about coming to hide out in LA with you, he admitted. We laughed about that, and he left me to finish packing and get ready for the morning. I heard the doorbell, but didn't think anything of it, figuring that Mary was coming over for the evening. Mike appeared in the doorway again, and he didn't look happy. You have a guest? He told me in a tone that left no doubt that I wasn't gonna like this visit. I came out to the living room and Linda was sitting on the sofa, looking around curiously, as if she'd never been here before. She looked up and our eyes met. What the hell do you want? I demanded angrily. I just want to explain, she said quickly. I got the idea when you and Billy were sucking face. Thanks for stopping by to remind me never to come back to Denver. There's the door. I turned and walked back down the hall. Damn it. Listen, she shouted angrily. If that's what it takes to get all you people to screw off, then fine. Explain to your little heart's content. I returned to the living room and dropped into a chair, my eyes glittering with hate as I looked at her. She composed herself and sat on the couch again. Thanks, she said, her tone changing. Don't thank me. Just say what you need to say with as few words as possible and then get out. I told her harshly. She gave me a reproachful look, but took a deep breath. Petey, we were together for a long time, she started. I'd never had a serious boyfriend before. I didn't know what love was. I know we were saying it every day, but it was just a word. I liked you a lot, but love? I never really felt that heart-skipping love for you that you should feel for someone you're going to commit to spending the rest of your life with. I started to feel trapped, like I was missing out on an important part of life. After you graduated, I ran into Billy one day and we just started talking. It was so much more comfortable and satisfying and fulfilling than my conversations with you. I didn't plan it, but I won't call it a mistake. I love Billy. I only liked you. I sat and waited for more. Is that it? I asked flatly. Well, what did you expect? She snapped sharply. I kind of expected that I'd done something that made you hate me, I admitted. The way you treated me, that's not how you treat someone unless there's hate. You kept me on a string for a year, knowing I was faithful to you, and you let me think you were faithful to me. You turned my parents against me, making them cover up what you were doing. You wrecked my life. I'll never set foot in the house I grew up in again. Never. I'll never forgive Billy for this. He was my brother, and you drove a stake through the heart of that relationship. When Mike gets married, I can't even go to his wedding because all of you will be there. If someone did that to you, would you believe for a second that they liked you? I sneered at her. So, yeah, I kind of expected more, like maybe I got drunk at a party and said something that got back to you. Or someone told you a lie that I cheated on you or that I drowned puppies in my spare time or something that would match the shitty way you've screwed my life. I'll probably never come back to Denver again because there's nothing left for me here, thanks to you. Mike's still my brother, but he's part of the family still. Every day that I'm here puts him in the middle. Nothing you've told me is an explanation. Just a lot of bullshit from a spoiled bitch that I'd have been better off not ever talking to. I was snarling by the end of that speech, each word infused with all the venom that I could muster. I think you should go, Linda. You've managed to make me hate you more with that explanation. It's probably for the best that I'm not coming back. I sincerely hope that Billy cheats on you and beats you and brings home some disease from one of his other 304s and gives it to you. I'd never hit a woman, but I'd also never steal my brother's girlfriend. So hopefully the two impulses go hand in hand and turns you into a broken shell of a woman. She looked horrified at what I'd said. Mike had been lingering in the background. I tried to tell you this was a bad idea, he said calmly, stirring a cup of tea as he leaned against the entryway to the kitchen. He didn't look shocked by either her explanation or my reaction. You might as well give him the rest of it. She looked like she was going to cry, but slid a check across the coffee table to me. I could see my mother's handwriting on the face of it. What's that for? I asked sharply. She said it was to help you in LA this year, she said faintly. I don't want it, I told her. Take the money, Mike told me. You need it, and if you don't take it, she'll only spend it on Billy. Taking her money would feel like I was letting her tie a string to me, I told him. So cut the string, he said. I'll tell her that you didn't want to take it because you were suspicious that it came with a hook. You don't have to talk to her. You don't have to explain it to her. Just cash it and use it to keep your bills paid. Look at it like this. They owe you this much. I shrugged and put the check in my pocket. I guess. It'll help recover what I spent on the engagement ring I bought before I came home. You didn't, Linda said, upset all over again. Yeah, I told her and got up. Yeah, I did. We done here? You have more to say? She shook her head, still shocked that I'd bought a ring for her. Good. Tell your boyfriend that if he's ever stupid enough to marry you, I'll sell it to him. He can have it for the $5,000 I paid for it, and an extra $1,000 just because I deserve to get something out of it. The truth was that I'd gotten the ring from Sajish, a friend of mine. Sajesh was from India and his uncle sold jewelry. The ring would sell for $5,000 retail, but I paid just $1,000 for it and I tutor Sajesh for free until he graduates. Not a bad deal considering that he graduates after this year. She started crying then, tears flowing down her cheeks. I don't know whether I'd hurt her by calling her a 304, if she was filled with remorse over finding out I'd spent money on our relationship that I could have saved if any of them had been honest with me, if it was just an act to get me to lower my guard, or if she was starting to think she might have picked the wrong brother. I didn't care. I'll leave you and your future sister-in-law alone, Mike, I said and went back to my room. I could hear the murmur of voices as they talked for about 20 minutes before she left. I was reading on my tablet when Mike came to see me. How you doing? He asked. I shrugged. I'd say I feel like I should after a visit from a 304, dirty and glad she's gone, I said. I tried to tell her it wasn't gonna go well, but she didn't believe me. I think they're both convinced that you'll stop being angry and you'll all be friends again. Maybe I will stop being angry someday, I told him. I'll never stop hating them though. He nodded and came to sit at the desk we'd put in the room this summer. He turned the chair around so he was facing the bed. You've got pretty good medical through college, right? He asked. Yeah. It's pretty top shelf, I guess. I've never really needed it. When you get back to LA, use it. Talk to someone about what they did to you. I personally don't care if you hate them for the rest of your life, but you're not just holding on to anger. There's rage in your face when you talk about it. Get it out. At least then you'll have a shot at finding someone who you can build a life with. I shrugged. Maybe, I said dismissively. Look at it another way then, he suggested. It's a new person to rant about this to. You could use a little time to rehash it with someone new. I nodded, thinking that sounded more to my liking. All right, I'll talk to someone, I said. You really had a ring for her? He asked gently. I went to my luggage and dug it out, tossing it to him to look at. Shit, he said when he opened the box. That's a nice ring. You really paid $5,000 for it? Just about, I said. I paid one in cash and agreed to tutor my friend for the next year. His uncle sells jewelry like that wholesale. You'll get your money, he said. It'll probably come from Dad, but it amounts to the same thing since he pays for whatever Billy wants. I nodded, and we turned the conversation away from them for now. Mike took a picture of the ring, saying that he wanted to show it to Mary, and then I put it away and we both turned in early. I had to be at the airport early enough to go through security and be there for boarding. At the airport, Mike gave me a hug and told me to call him regularly. If you ever need anything, he said, money, advice, whatever, just call me and I'll be here for you. Thanks, Mike, I said. I was a little emotional leaving, but Mike had become my whole family this summer, and it was a little wrenching to say goodbye. Thanks for everything this summer. I'll come back to see you next summer if you want. He knew how much that offer meant, considering that it put me in close contact with everything that had hurt me. He hugged me again and both of us were a little teary-eyed. Anytime, little brother, he said seriously. Christmas, spring break, summer, you name it. I had to go then to get through security before my flight boarded. I kept my word and talked to a counselor about what had happened. He helped me work through the worst of the rage issues, some of the anger, and he gave up on talking me out of my hatred. He cautioned me that I might regret shutting my family out later in life, but I never listened. I stayed in LA for Christmas and celebrated with a phone call to Mike before he'd be heading over to the house to feast on turkey and all the trimmings. I guessed it would be a little crowded this year, since Mary had moved in with Mike after I left. He laughed about it and told me that I'd gotten him used to sharing the place and it felt too empty after I left. I finished the year and decided to keep the apartment. I left Mike's contact information with my landlord and got on the plane, wondering what I'd find when I got back to Denver. Mary met me at the airport. That surprised me. Mike didn't think you'd want the family to know you were coming, she explained. If you took the day off to be here, your father would have known. He didn't think you'd want to risk the welcoming committee. I would have thought my Christmas presents told them where they stood, I said. I'd sent a package of particularly nasty Christmas presents home. There was an ice pack for my father with a note that said it should help with the swelling in his balls and a giant vibrator for my mother, explaining that I was replacing the one I'd damaged. For Billy, I'd gotten a pamphlet on paternity tests and I'd sent Linda a morning after pill. She laughed at that. Yeah, that was memorable. I promised to stay on your good side. I don't want you mad at me. We went out to her car and chatted more comfortably. Mike said Tony was interested in having you come back for the summer again if you're interested, she told me. He said you can stop by any time and he'd put you to work right away. Thanks, I said. I'll probably head down there in the next few days. I'll have to get a bike for the summer to get around. Mike kept your old one, she told me. He got it ready to go last week. Perfect, I said. That makes things easier. So how did you like Christmas with the family? It was good. If I hadn't known the background and hadn't known about you, it would have looked like a perfect American family. Norman Rockwell couldn't have done it more proud. I think they were trying to make it extra festive to distract themselves from you not being there. Your mother included you in her prayer when she said grace. That must have been before the gifts, I said dryly. She laughed. Nope. Everyone else looked like they were ready to kill you, but I think she appreciated the gift you got her. Maybe she appreciates it regularly? She teased. Next year, I'll dip it in Tabasco sauce before I wrap it, I promised. I was liking Mary more and more. She laughed at that and shook her head. I can hardly wait to see what you actually do to them this year. It was hilarious, watching them open the gifts, filled with hope that you'd forgiven them. At first, your dad thought that the ice pack was meant as an apology for the kick, but when the rest of the gifts came out, he started to get pissed off. Your mom uses the ice pack though. She packs it in his lunch when he goes to work. I shrugged. So long as someone's getting some use out of it, I said lightly. She hadn't mentioned Billy and Linda's reactions, so I didn't know if they just rolled their eyes and moved on or if they'd blown up and she was keeping that part of the conversation from getting out of control. We got home and I unpacked. The apartment seemed nicer, and I noticed that there were a lot of little touches like a couple of pictures on the walls that made it seem less barren. Mary's touch. I complimented her on the way the apartment looked, and she smiled at that. She was going to work, having just taken a couple of hours off to pick me up, so I was on my own. I had my key, my bike, and no plans, so I wrote a note that I was gone to see Tony and went down to talk to him about the restaurant. He put me to work on the spot and asked me how many hours I wanted to work each week. As many as I can, I told him. This is where I make my money to go back to college. He nodded and sent me a heavy schedule. I'm still looking for people for the summer, he explained. If it's too much, let me know and we'll ease back some. No, it's cool, I assured him. I'm only back in town to work and see Mike. He nodded, and that's pretty much how summer went. I worked 6 days a week, hung out with Mike and Mary a little, slept and read. Mike had asked me to bring the ring I'd bought for Linda, and in mid-May, he told me that he had the money for me. They finally raised the cash? I asked, surprised. Nope, he said. I did. I want it for Mary. You're gonna propose? I sat up, taking notice. He nodded. Friday night. I'm taking her out to dinner and dancing. I'm nervous as hell. Relax, I told him. She loves you. Besides, you can always threaten her. If she says no, I'll get her a Christmas present. He laughed at that. She still laughs about that. I nodded and passed him the ring. No charge, I said. No deal, he said and handed me an envelope. Mike, you're all the family I've got. I'm not using the ring. If I can do this for you, let me. Don't make me hide this in your luggage, he said firmly. Take it. You deserve it. I want you to have it. I also might just let it slip that I got the ring before Billy. He's scraping together every dime he can find. I heard he's up to $3,500, and he's been hounding Dad to loan him the rest before you go back for the summer. I nodded. Then it's probably better if you told him that I gave it to you, I said. That way, he's not pissed off at you. He agreed. Then this, he held out the envelope again, is a gift too. Take it or I'll be insulted. I nodded finally and took the envelope, tucking it away in my luggage for now. We hugged and then I turned in. Mary said yes. When they went to tell the parents, Billy pitched a fit about hearing that I donated the ring. That made me smile. It also earned me a very ardent kiss from my new sister-in-law. I didn't really give him the ring. I confessed with a guilty smile when she let me go. I just told him that he shouldn't tell them that he'd paid me for it. That was still a nice thing to do, she told me. You must have been tempted to take the opportunity to piss them off. Oh, I'm sure they were plenty of pissed off when they found out that the ring came from me. I laughed. Telling them Mike raised the money would only have made them mad at him. Life wasn't always fun for the three of us. The bathroom was small, crowded, and in demand in the morning. The walls were thin, so I was treated to an audio account of their sex life. For a guy that hadn't been laid since high school, it was a little like torture. I started taking later shifts at the restaurant so that I'd be there instead of at home when the moaning started. It also helped ease the strain on the bathroom too. They'd get up early and get going and I'd still be in bed. I started working 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. regularly and Tony gave me a raise for taking the night shift off his hands 6 days a week. I was making money at an amazing rate, but at the cost of being tired all the time. On my day off, I was sleeping as much as I could and helping out around the house the rest of the time. One thing I'd learned to do out in LA was cook. I was pretty good at it and Tony must have taken notice, because I started finding myself working in the kitchen instead of up to my elbows in greasy dishwater. I learned a lot that summer and earned another raise as I moved into the kitchen full-time. By the time August rolled around, I'd made $15,000 at the restaurant and had another $6,000 from Mike. I'd been paying rent while I was there, but I still had nearly 20 grand to my name when I started packing. I was in pretty good shape to graduate this year if I pushed, and I was looking forward to that. I was taking computer sciences, and I was wondering whether I could get some scholarship money to continue on to grad school and get a master's, or whether I should move out into the job market and upgrade over time. This year's last-minute olive branch from the family came from my mother. She showed up with a check similar to the previous year and begged me to let her back into my life. I took the check and shrugged at her plea. Truthfully, I really don't hate you, I told her. Billy, I hate. If he needed a kidney and I was a match, I'd set myself on fire so he wouldn't get it when I died. Linda, I hate. I won't tell you what I'd do to her if I thought I could get away with it, but it wouldn't be pretty. Your husband? I'm not sure. I don't have any respect for him. I don't have any love for him. He's no father to me, but I don't know if I hate him or just have nothing for him but contempt. I think you're in a slightly better situation than him. I don't hate you, but I don't think I love you anymore either. I counted on you to look out for me, especially when I couldn't look out for myself. I'll never count on you again, and that's kind of where we are. You have to understand, she said, deeply troubled by what I'd said. I was caught between two of my sons. I nodded. I know, and you made the choice. I don't have to like it, but it's done, and I might be able to count on you in just about every other situation imaginable, but you'll always choose Billy. In my head, that's the inescapable truth. So I refuse to ever put myself in the position to need you when Billy might demand something. Since he's a spoiled little shit, he's likely to demand mommy any time of the day or night. So I refuse to rely on you. It won't be like this forever, she said. Billy needed us. You were in LA on your own and independent. What Billy needed was a beating for some of the shit he pulled. Mike had to bail him out at school more than once, and I did too. He was our brother, and we stood up for him when he was going to get killed. Now, I wish we'd stood back and let him take his licks. He might have been a better person if we had. Billy's graduated now. He's starting college in a few weeks, she told me. He's talking about moving out and getting a place with Linda. I shrugged. Good for him, I said flatly. That'll make life easier for you. I hope you enjoy the downtime. Look, I have an early flight tomorrow, so I'm going to turn in. Thanks for stopping by. I'm glad life is going so well for you. She looked crestfallen at that. She'd been clearly hoping that I'd take the olive branch and give out hugs and forgiveness. Are you? Will you come home for Christmas this year? No, I said. This will be Mike and Mary's first Christmas living together. I'm not going to insert myself in the middle of that. You could stay with us, she offered. I laughed at that. Nope. If I stayed under your roof, you'd try to patch things up with Billy, Linda, and me. Screw that. I'd rather spend Christmas alone. Not to mention, I have no idea what your husband thinks of all this, but I've seen him carry a grudge for years, so I wouldn't turn my back on him if you paid me. Your father was angry for a long time, she told me. It took a lot of me explaining to him how he treated you to see that he pushed you to do what you did to him. I think he looks at it now as you standing up for yourself. I shrugged. That's only one of the issues. I don't want anything to do with Billy or Linda. I don't want to sit down and talk it out. I don't want to shake hands and say Merry Christmas. I don't want to sit around the table and pass the potatoes. I just want to be left alone. You got Linda as a daughter. It only cost you a son you weren't using anyway. Don't talk like that, she wailed. I'd never trade you for Linda. You're my boy and I love you. Thanks for that, I said, mostly keeping the sarcasm out of my voice. The only person in the family that I've felt was on my side in all this is Mike. I appreciate you saying that you love me, but Mike and Mary are my only family since that happened. You and your husband sided with Billy, and you had to know that I'd never forgive him for taking her. She nodded. We were all furious with him when we found out, she said. You were gone to college by then, but they'd been together for months at that point. We talked about grounding him, but we couldn't ground her. We thought about calling you, but we were worried that telling you would ruin your studies and you'd be out there with no one to help you through it. I thought they were going to tell you at Christmas, but they didn't. Then you couldn't come home for spring break, and we were all relieved that we wouldn't have to do that to you then. I made Billy promise to tell you when you came home for summer though. Yeah, I said darkly. He decided to show me instead. I grounded him for a month for that, she said. I refused to let Linda into the house to see him or let him out for a full month. How awful that must have been for him, I said flatly. To have the woman he loves torn away like that. I can only imagine. What else was I supposed to do? She snapped. He's not exactly small enough to spank anymore. I yelled at him every day for a week and then wouldn't speak to either of them for the rest of the summer. Does he even care? I asked suddenly. He ruined my life. destroyed the family, and did something so selfish and rotten that no one in their right mind would ever trust him again. Does he feel bad about any of it? It was the first time I'd asked about him on any level, and it must have taken her by surprise, because she had a great deal of difficulty trying to come up with an answer. I don't know, she admitted finally. Sometimes your name comes up in conversation, and he looks troubled. Other times, he just rolls his eyes and tries to change the subject. Then he probably cares about the consequences to his life, but couldn't care less about what it did to me, I supplied. I wouldn't count on any Christmas presents I send to be any more loving than last year's. I've been told that of the 4 I sent, you looked like you appreciated yours most. I suspect Linda's got used at some point, and the ice pack is seeing regular use. Billy's gift was probably not appreciated as much as the others, but that's okay. She didn't have an answer to that, so she changed tactics. I tried to send you something, but it came back, she told me. I don't live in the dorms anymore, I told her. Oh, she said. Where do you live now? I have an apartment, I told her, but didn't tell her where. You don't want me to know where it is? She asked perceptively. I shrugged. It's near school, I told her. If you really want the address, I don't see that being a problem. It's a little far for any of you to drop in casually. I wrote down the address and gave it to her. I figured that if they made a nuisance of themselves, I was only there until graduation, then I could move anywhere in the country. That made her happy enough to make the whole visit a success in her eyes. Surprised that you let her know where you were living, Mike told me after she'd gone. If she abuses the information, I can move after graduation, I said, and then really did turn in. Mike took me to the airport and saw me off. He had another envelope for me, but I shook my head. I've done pretty good this summer, I told him. Put that toward the wedding and the honeymoon. Just take it, he said, and put the envelope in my hand with a smile. We had an affectionate goodbye. It was less emotional than last year, but that was understandable. We were both more comfortable with our situation. The year went well. I called Mike for Christmas, got a card and a check from Mom. She explained that she didn't know what I could use or even want, so she wanted me to get something nice for myself. I put it in the bank with the rest of them. I told Mike that I was planning to graduate this year, but hadn't shared that with the rest of the family. I didn't want them at the ceremony, brimming with false pride like they'd done anything to participate in my success. I'd sent presents back for Christmas, and this year was like last year. My father got an athletic supporter that boasted baby on board. Mom had gotten a card instead of a present. In it, I told her that I'd thought about getting her another sex toy, but decided to meet her partway instead and stop antagonizing her. Billy got an assortment of penis-shaped chocolates. Linda's gift was a stud finder, with a note telling her that since instinct had failed her, she should turn to technology. Mike had kindly explained what the device was called. I was told that once again, my present to my mother had been appreciated and that everyone else was pissed off. I wondered what happened to the chocolates. I tutored, like I always did, and studied full-time. My party time had dwindled from Friday nights to every second Friday to once a month as the year wore on. I was well-liked on campus. The story of my first-year celibacy combined with my second-year admission that she cheated on me had made me a sympathetic figure. I was something of an oddity, in that I didn't rush out and bed every woman I could get on top of. A few girls flirted with me during second and third year, but I let them down easy, telling them my breakup was still too fresh. I said something about recovery taking half the length of the relationship and that we'd been together for 4 years. That usually worked. I don't know why, but girls seemed to have that knowing look when I said it, like it was a rule they'd heard too, even though I was making it up. That continued to make me popular on campus with girls that were uncommonly pretty. I was safe to hang out with. Graduation came, and Mike and Mary came out for it. I'd missed out on funding for grad school, not because of grades, but because there was only so much grant money to go around. I knew I could afford the first year on my own from my bank account. I wasn't sure about the second year, though. I talked to Mike about it and admitted that I wanted the degree, but I needed to save a lot more money to do it. He told me to let the apartment go for the summer and store my stuff in a storage locker, come back to Denver and work for the summer. Between us, we'd make the money for the second year. That took a lot of weight off my mind, and I thanked him. We were on a plane 2 days later and back home. The only problem was that I didn't have a job with Tony this year. He had all the staff he could handle. He said he'd ask around, but didn't seem hopeful. Reluctantly, Mike and I agreed to have me start work with him and his father. The money was better, but the work was more physical than I was used to, and then there was the matter of my father. He was hard on me. When there was a dirty job to do, I got assigned to it. When someone had to skip lunch, it was me. When someone had to stay late, I didn't get to go home. When someone on the crew screwed up, I'd get yelled at. I gritted my teeth and thought about grad school. I wanted this more than anything else in the world, So I put up with my father's harassment, thinking fond thoughts of caving his head in with a wrench and burying the body in the foundation of the building we were working on. May faded into June, and June turned into July without him letting up on me. I knew he wouldn't. He'd punish me all summer. Still, I banked a lot of money and I thought that I might be able to afford both years if I could do this again next summer. Then I showed up one day and Billy was on the crew, giving me a funny smile. I ignored him and kept working. From then on, I had both of them at me. Billy would screw up and I'd get shit for it. Mike saw a couple of times and talked to his father about it, but it never mattered. I kept my head down and continued working, knowing that the countdown was on. I had less than a month of it left when Billy started taunting me, telling the crew how hot his girl was and how she dumped some chicken to get with him. Billy's not too smart. You say something to the crew and it gets around. Mike heard about Billy running his mouth and came to ask me if it was true. He's trying to get under my skin, I said quietly. I've only got a few more weeks and then I'm back in LA. Hopefully I can work with Tony next year or find something in computers to get some experience in my field. His face hardened when he heard that, and over the next few days, I saw him talking to a lot of the guys on the crew. Suddenly, Billy wasn't as popular as he had been. For that matter, neither was my father. He'd always been well-liked, but whatever Mike had said, the shit had splashed on him too. Guys that laughed about it when I got yelled at didn't find it funny anymore. Mid-August, Billy managed to get me hurt. He'd screwed up on the framing he was doing and the whole thing collapsed. I was pinned under it and trapped for a couple of hours while they all worked to get me out safely. I ended up in the hospital for several hours and was diagnosed with several bruised ribs and a nasty gash across my back that took 12 stitches to close. I was off work for 4 days. I was miserable and sore, and when I went back, I was called into the office. The project manager wanted my account of what happened, so I told him that I'd been walking past this section of framing that Billy was supposed to have secured and it came loose and fell on me. He talked to me about my experience working there this summer, and I decided to go for broke. To be honest, sir, I'll probably go back to my old job next year if it's available. My father runs the crew, and he's treated me like dog's hit all summer over a personal grudge. I'd rather sling hash back at the restaurant for half the money than put myself through another summer of his crap. He put Billy on the framing job and he screwed up and I could have gotten killed. He screamed loud and hard that he didn't trust me with a hammer, let alone nails. I don't trust him to run a crew again. He's used his authority to push me around all summer and put my brother into jobs that he wasn't paying attention to. How many other screw-ups has Billy made that we haven't caught yet? He thought about that and nodded. I fired Billy the next day. He'll never work for me again. I've had 7 or 8 of the guys out there tell me that you were getting an extra helping of shit from your old man, and a couple of them have said they're not happy with him as foreman after this summer. If you do come back next year, I promise you that you won't answer to him at all. I nodded and shook his hand. He told me to take it easy for the rest of my time there. It was only a few more days, but I think he wanted the rest of my time to be pleasant. I was assigned a broom and told to lean on it for 15 out of every 20 minutes. Mike came to see me and asked me how the meeting had gone. I told him what I'd said and what I'd been told, and he nodded. Dad might lose the crew over this, he said. I don't think they'd fire him, but he might find himself working on the crew instead of in charge of it. I nodded. I heard some of the other guys said they didn't want to work for him after this. I said I'd go back to the restaurant rather than risk it. He nodded. I set everyone straight about who it was that Billy stole his girlfriend from. That stopped a lot of the laughing. A few of the guys have been in your shoes. Having your brother do it, though, that's pretty low as far as the guys are concerned. I nodded, and we separated. I did take it easy, but I kept a lot of the job site swept up. A stray nail can go straight through a work boot, and none of us wanted to limp around for a few weeks while that healed. I received my final paycheck, packed up my belongings, and waited for the family to visit and try to make amends. This year, that visit never came. Mike told me the house was in chaos. Mom was furious with Dad and Billy. They came home and acted like nothing had happened. Mom didn't even know until I went over the next evening to confront both of them. She was livid. I told Dad he would have to make significant efforts to repair the damage he'd caused. As for Billy, his reputation is ruined. He would need to leave the state to find work in construction again. He's still in college, but now he doesn't have a job to rely on, especially not with Dad's help. I nodded. Good, I said. I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting help from family. You've gotten me work the past 3 years. I always try to make sure that I didn't make you wish you hadn't recommended me, though. Billy seemed like he was there mostly because it was a chance to get back at me for my Christmas presents. Mike nodded, agreeing silently. So this year, there was no visit, no check to help me get by, and no regrets for me. My tuition was already paid. I'd gotten another unit in the same apartment complex. I told Mike it was okay to give the updated address to Mom. In short, I just needed to rent a truck to move my furniture into the new place. That year was hard for me. Grad school is a lot more advanced, and I was working in the computer center rather than tutor at this point. The money wasn't quite so good and the problems were mostly routine, but gave me a lot more time to study. I kept a few of my previous students and tutored them on the side, but mostly, I just focused on getting the best marks possible. Christmas saw me send the same assortment of gifts. Billy got the Complete Idiot's Guide to Home Improvement, Dad got a book about effective management techniques, Linda got a year's membership to Ashley Madison. For those that don't know, that's the website for married people looking to cheat with other married people. I sent Mom a framed picture of me from my graduation. That one was a little mean. It told her that I'd graduated and that she hadn't been there, but it was also a way of telling the others that I was doing fine without them. Mike said Mom had loved the picture and cried, knowing that I'd made it. He also told me that he'd been promoted to foreman and that I'd be working for him next summer. I asked about Dad's job, and he told me that Dad had seen the writing on the wall and had taken a job with a competitor as a foreman. He'd have a lot of trouble getting Billy hired since the tale of my accident had spread, but there was an outside chance. I'd managed to make good marks, save as much money as possible, and put my furniture back in storage at the end of the year. I'd been tempted to save money by taking the bus instead of flying, but the difference in price was less than what I'd spend on snacks and meals during the drive, so I flew. This year, summer flew by and I enjoyed working on the crew under Mike. It was a pleasure to go to work each day. I helped out around the house, cooked a lot of the evening meals for the three of us, and warmed up to Mary even more. She was the sister I'd never had. Often enough, I'd eat by myself because they'd go over to the house for family dinners, but that was okay. I'd take the time to hog the bathroom and soak in the tub. I suffered from tired muscles most of the time, and I'd relax in the tub whenever they went out for the evening. Mom asked what you're doing now that you've graduated. Mike told me one night. I told her you're still in college getting your master's. She lost her mind when I told her you were paying for it yourself. She asked how, and I told her you've been saving most of your money since you started college. Billy and Linda were there, so they know you're about to be done with grad school too. Dad doesn't care. You might as well just stop sending him the gag gifts at Christmas. He's already past the point where he can get more angry. After he opened it, he threw the book away and ranted about it for a long time. I shrugged. I do it mostly to remind them that they're terrible people, I said. Mom's gift was an actual gift. I might invite her to come out for my graduation this year if she can come without the rest of the zoo animals. He nodded. We'll be there, he promised. Summer went on without any bumps in the road except one. I met someone, or rather, I ran into someone I went to high school with. Sabrina Pierce had been popular in school, bright, athletic, beautiful, and outgoing. She was back from college, like I was, and she suggested we get together to catch up sometime. We had our first date at the end of July. It was just dinner at Tony's restaurant, since I knew the staff and trusted the food. She just graduated with a degree in business and was thinking about whether to go on to get her master's or go out into the world. She was impressed that I had one more year left on my master's, and I explained that I doubled up on courses when I could. She asked about Linda, and I realized that she hadn't heard. We broke up, I told her softly. She was cheating on me with my younger brother for my first year at college. I don't talk to the family much anymore. It sort of became a big production. She looked horrified that it had happened and horrified that she brought it up. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Relax, I told her. I haven't really talked about it much. It happened a few years back, now, so I'm mostly over it. I still hate her and my brother for going behind my back, but I don't go crazy about it anymore. She reached across the table and took my hand, sympathy on her face. If you ever want to talk about it, I'd be happy to listen, she said seriously. I smiled and squeezed her hand. We talked about it a little. I told her I was grateful for Mike, and she laughed when I told her about the gifts I'd been giving the family. I felt better than I had in ages, and she told me a lot about college in Miami. We talked until well into the evening, and then we both admitted that we needed to be up early the next morning. She dropped me off at home, and on impulse, I leaned over to kiss her cheek. I think this is the most fun I've had since I left for college, I confessed. Can we do this again? I'd like that, she told me with a smile, and then shooed me out of the car so she could go home to bed. I got a text from her 20 minutes later thanking me for the evening. Over the next few days, Mike and Mary both commented about how much happier I looked. They looked very pleased and were both supportive. They promised not to tell the folks who, but admitted that they were itching to tell them that I was dating. Wait until it's a little more serious, I suggested. It's already serious, Mary told me. You took 2 years to warm up to me, and this girl has you smiling after one date. It's nice to see this side of you. I agreed. The rest of summer went like that. Sabrina and I were both planning to pay for school out of pocket, So our dates were always cheap, but that meant we were focusing on each other rather than where we were. By the time I was ready to fly back to LA, we'd gone from a kiss on the cheek to serious making out. I wished she could come with me, but we both promised to stay in touch and planned to spend next summer together. I went back to school feeling like a new person. I had my degree paid for. I just had to pass the courses. I got my apartment set up and threw myself into the work. I felt like I was on top of the world. I talked with Sabrina almost daily, even if it was just a few minutes on FaceTime. I had daydreams of moving out to Miami for work while she finished her master's there, and the two of us settling down together. It was a good dream. Christmas came, and I sent a single card to Mom. I wished her a Merry Christmas and told her that she was invited to come with Mike and Mary to my graduation at the end of the year. I didn't bother with the troll gifts this year. I just didn't acknowledge that they existed. Mike told me later that there was a lot of speculation about what that meant. The year came and went. Sabrina and I were falling in love. My courses were coming together. Graduation was a certainty at this point. I was going to have a great job. I had the love of the most beautiful woman in my high school, and my future was going to be worry-free. Mom, Mike and Mary came out to see me graduate, and then I was done. I sold off the minimal furniture I had to one of the other students that was staying for another year, and I waved goodbye to LA. I might be back, but it wouldn't be as a student. Sabrina and I were both working for the summer and had cemented plans to move in together in Miami in September. It was the happiest I'd ever been. I put off buying a car, planning to get one when I got to Florida instead. I went back to work for Mike, and Sabrina worked at Target for the summer. I thought that made perfect sense. She was always so sunny and friendly that she fit right in with the attitude of the company. She talked about liking the corporate culture at Target and wanting to take that attitude into every job she took. I was deeply in love with her and told her so as often as she'd let me. She always grinned and giggled a little, like she was surprised and delighted. We were disgustingly affectionate. I met her parents and they were nice. They reminded me of how things had used to be at home for me. I introduced her to Mike and Mary, and they loved her. Now can we tell them that you're dating? Mary asked one night late in June. I've been bursting to tell them that you've got a girlfriend since last summer. I laughed and nodded. You can even tell them who, I said. Billy and Linda both know who Sabrina is. They might faint when they realize that we're dating. I can do better than that, Mary said with a smirk, and showed me her phone. She'd snapped a picture of the two of us sitting together on the sofa. We were too focused on each other to even realize she was taking pictures. That's beautiful, I said to her, enthused. Show them that. The next night, they were going over for a big family dinner. Billy and Linda were going to be there, and I was going to take my regular date with the bathtub while they did their thing. I was relaxing in bed when they came home and wanted to tell me all about the reactions. Mom had been ecstatic with the news. Dad had grunted something, but had claimed that she must be retarded since she didn't look ugly enough to have to resort to dating me. Billy and Linda had both admitted that she looked familiar, but couldn't place her until Mary had supplied her name. That made them both gape in shock that I'd started dating her. We chuckled at their reactions, and then we all turned in. Life was normal for all of us. Mike and Mary were in love. Sabrina and I were in love. It was the best summer of my life. It was mid-July when that changed. Sabrina and I had been out for dinner, followed by a long, hot makeout session. I wanted her in the worst way imaginable, and I knew she wanted me too. I'd asked Mike if he minded if she stayed the night, and he was cool with it. Tonight, we were planning on christening the bed I'd slept on the past several summers. I turned in my seat to look at her, my mind on how beautiful she was. The light had just turned green, and she started through the intersection. I watched in horror as the truck bore down on us, plowing through the red light. No, I screamed, and didn't even have time to reach out to her before it slammed into her door. Everything lurched like someone had picked up the car and shaken it. I could see flying glass and hear screaming, and then I hit my head and everything stopped. I don't know how long I was out, but when I came to, I could hear sirens in the distance. I was still in the car. Sabrina. I gasped and looked for her. When my eyes fell on her, the noise that ripped out of my throat was nothing that sane men should hear. Pete, she mumbled, choking up blood. I took her hand in both of mine. I'm here, baby. I told her. Stay with me. Help's on the way. She was covered in blood, and she was spraying tiny little flecks of it with each coughing breath she took. The truck had hit us hard enough that her door had imploded. I prayed harder than I've ever prayed for anything. Pete, she repeated. I'm scared. Hold my hand. I've got you, baby. I'm here. Just hold on. Help's coming. I had her hand in mine and I squeezed it. You feel that? I asked. I'm squeezing your fingers. She nodded weakly. I feel it now. Pete, I love you. I need you to know I do. She was starting to cry. I'm so sorry, I'm not going to be around to tell you from now on. No. No. I babbled. Don't you leave me. You're going to make it, and we're going to Miami, and we're going to be happy there. We'll get a little place near the beach. I promised, as if pleading with her not to leave me. I'll get a job, and you'll go to school, and everything will be perfect. You just have to stay awake. Stay with me, honey. But she was already gone. I'd had so little time with her, and she was dead, trapped with me in her little Honda Civic. I felt her fingers go slack and heard her whisper that she loved me one last time, and then she closed her eyes for good. No. I bellowed and wailed in despair. No. Wake up, baby. I lost all sense of time, shaking her a little as I tried to coax a response out of her. I held her, leaning across the seat to wrap my arms around her, and cried. Then the emergency crews were there, and trying to get me out of the car. I fought them, trying to stay with Sabrina, but I was hurt too, and there were too many of them. They pulled me out so the paramedics could work on her, but a quick look at her, and they shook their head. There was no saving her. I was strapped to a gurney and loaded into an ambulance. I didn't want to go to the hospital. I wanted to lay down and die right here. I wanted to be with Sabrina. I wanted to hold her forever. I didn't care if we were buried in the ground. That was where I wanted to be. I got more and more hysterical, the farther away from her we got, until they sedated me. I drifted off to sleep and hoped I didn't wake up again. But I did wake up. At first, I just surfaced and there was calm. I could hear the distinctive hospital sounds, and I was curious about why I was here. I took a deep breath, and then I remembered. It hit me with the same force as the truck had, and I started bawling in despair all over again. The nurses were there in moments, having heard me or seen the spike in my vitals at the nurses' station. A needle full of liquid calm was pumped into my fore, and after a moment, my cries trailed off to helpless whimpers. Just let me go to her, I begged piteously before darkness stole the world. When I woke again, it was daytime. I opened my eyes and tried to sit up. Hey, came a woman's voice nearby. Take it easy. Mary came to push me back down flat. Sabrina, I said. She's. I trailed off, my face screwed up in grief. I know, she said, crying a little too. There wasn't anything you could have done. They say she wasn't in any pain. She probably didn't even know it happened. No, she was awake. I wailed. She said. She was scared. I broke down into tears again, and she held my hand, weeping with me. There were no words. We wept for the young woman we'd gotten to know and love. After a while, I was calm enough to tell her about Sabrina's last words. That started us back to weeping, though, and that's how we spent most of the day. Tears, broken up by periods of startling calm. Sabrina's parents came to see me late in the day. That started us all crying again. I found out that I'd been out for 2 days. Her funeral was the day after tomorrow. I have to be there, I told Mary. I need to get out of here. I'd been examined by the doctors and had been told that I had bruised ribs, a severe concussion, a sprained wrist, and a bruised kidney. He said I was lucky to be alive. I just looked at him like he was stupid. This wasn't lucky. Lucky would have been dying in that car, being with Sabrina forever. This was the worst thing that had ever happened to me. They were okay with releasing me in the morning, so long as the concussion didn't cause me any complications. Mary stayed with me all day, just watching me most of the time, but engaging in conversation when I wanted to talk. When the police came to take my statement, I asked them what had happened. Was he drunk? Did his brakes fail? Why did he hit us? One of the cops looked at the other and shook his head. He just wasn't paying attention, he said. He was talking with his girl and just didn't notice the light change as he approached the intersection. I closed my eyes. So, Sabrina died because he just wasn't looking where he was going? I repeated. I'm afraid so, he said sadly. I'm sorry for your loss, son. What's his name? I asked. What? One of the officers asked. The guy that killed my girlfriend, I said. Who is he? Hamilton, he told me. William Hamilton. Any relation? I stared at him. You're telling me that my brother murdered my girlfriend? I asked him. No one's calling it murder, the cop assured me. I am. I snapped. Is there something we should know about? The other cop asked. Mary jumped in. Peter's first serious girlfriend cheated on him with Billy. The two of them are still together. They've never repaired their relationship from that. She would have been the girlfriend he was talking to when the accident happened. They nodded. We don't have any evidence that he knew you were in that car, or that he'd planned to hit it, the first officer told me gently. Given your history, I can understand your feelings about him, but we need to look at the facts. I understand, officer, I said dully. Mostly, I understood that Sabrina was dead and Billy was the one that killed her. I understood that no one was going to do a damn thing about it, and that they weren't going to let me go to Sabrina, like I wanted. They weren't going to punish him. They were no use to me, and they were gonna declare it an accident, move on with their paperwork, and hit the next case with the same lazy detachment. If there's any other details you can remember, give us a call, the other officer told me, and tried to hand me a card. I remember my girlfriend telling me she was scared. I told them, and that she was sorry she was going to have to leave me. They both looked sympathetic, and they left their card on the table. When they left, I just stared at my hands in my lap. You knew? I asked. I wasn't keeping it from you, she said. I was waiting for you to ask on your own. I nodded. I can't say I blame you. I wouldn't have wanted to deliver that piece of news in your shoes either. Mike at work? I asked. Yeah, she admitted. He'd have been here, but the doctor wasn't sure you'd wake up today. It's okay, I said. What are the parents doing about all of this? I asked. I don't know, she admitted. They came to see you when they came to pick Linda and Billy up. They didn't say much, just wanted to see you. I nodded. I suppose I can understand that, I said woodenly. In the span of the last few minutes, all the emotion had drained out of me. I felt like a husk. I'd been hollowed out when Linda had betrayed me. I was just starting to put my life back together, and then Billy took the woman I loved again. Mary tried to talk to me a little more, but I barely heard her. I wasn't even sure if she was speaking to me half the time. Mike came, and we talked a little, but my heart wasn't in it. Yes, I knew that Billy had been behind the wheel. Yes, I spoke to the police. No, I didn't want to talk about it anymore. They left, with looks that told me they didn't know how to help, but desperately wanted to. The next morning, Mary picked me from the hospital and took me to get a new suit for the funeral. The fitting was excruciatingly painful for me and seemed to go on forever, but eventually, I had a suit that fit reasonably well. Mary wanted to take me somewhere to eat after we had my suit. I shrugged. I wasn't hungry, but I was agreeable enough to go with her. We sat in the booth and she ordered chicken parmesan and I ordered a club sandwich, planning on taking half of it home to put in the fridge. We ate slowly, with Mary doing most of the talking. When she'd exhausted most of the safe topics, she sighed. How are you feeling? She asked quietly. No, mostly, I admitted. Sometimes it hits me that she's gone and I'll never see her smile again, but mostly, I just don't feel anything right now. She nodded. Just take it one step at a time. I know Sabrina would want you to be happy. That's not gonna happen overnight, but it'll come eventually. I nodded. I can't stay here in Denver, I told her. I'll kill Billy if I stay. I'll see him at a bar or a store or on the street and I trailed off and shook my head. Yeah, Mike and I talked about moving last night, she admitted. The family is pretty fractured. Your dad hasn't been the same to me or Mike since he switched jobs. Billy, well, whether he meant it or not, there's no way to put things back together for the two of you. Your mother is caught in the middle. She loves you and your brother, but this one has her in fits. She can't condemn Billy for an accident, but at the same time, she knows you have to want his blood. Yeah, I agreed. I think I'd want to spend years collecting that blood though. Did you and Mike talk about where you might move to? I have some family in Birmingham that I'm close to. Mike can get another foreman's job there, and we'll manage. You want to come with us? She asked gently. You should be with family while you recover, at least. You're planning to go that soon? I asked. I think so, she said. Mike's sick about this. He's been trying to keep the peace this whole time, but last night, I think he chose sides for good. Why last night? I asked. Seeing you laying in bed, looking like you wanted to die, she told me. I do, I said quietly. Sabrina's last words were to apologize that she wasn't going to be around to tell me that she loved me. All I want is to lay down next to her tomorrow. I know, she said, reaching across the table and squeezing my hand. Just promise me that you won't do anything to make that happen. I gave her hand a squeeze and nodded. I promise. So, I guess we're going to Birmingham then, I said lightly. I should probably get a lawyer and sue the shit out of Billy's insurance company before we leave. She told me that Sabrina's parents were suing too. We went over to see the same lawyer they were using for their suit, and he was frank about his assessment. Her parents will make the real money, he said. As her boyfriend, you don't really have much of a claim in the eyes of the law. You'll get some for the emotional distress of having her die right in front of you, but your settlement will be based on what your injuries are. I nodded and asked what the insurance companies usually settled for in cases like this. They'll pay your medical and probably a promise of future medical expenses for a few years in case there's complications. After that, you'll probably get somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000. That includes your emotional injuries. I nodded in response, resigned to the further indignity that my love for Sabrina didn't count for anything with anyone except me. The rest of my time in Denver was brutal. I broke down completely at the funeral. They couldn't have an open casket, so I didn't even get to hold her hand one last time. Several of Sabrina's friends had known we were together and came to hug me, crying along with me. Mom had come to see me a few days after the funeral and tried to think of something to say, but she couldn't seem to make the words come. She told me that Billy felt awful about it, but I didn't even respond to that, pretending like she hadn't spoken. She went away deeply conflicted about what to do. I gave my notice to work. Mike had told them that he was leaving, and with a few calls, he had a job waiting for him when he arrived. I had a glowing letter of recommendation from Tony and another from my boss at the construction company to add to my resume. I started looking for a job in Birmingham. To my surprise, I found one in the IT department for an insurance company. We packed up the house and made critical decisions on what furniture to take and what to replace when we got there. In the end, we decided to sell most of the furniture and donate the rest to Goodwill. Mom came by a few times to talk, but there wasn't much to say. "This is goodbye," I told her gently. "I'm not ever coming back here. All there is for me in Denver is bad memories. If I pass through the city, it'll be on my way somewhere else. I'll stop by Sabrina's grave, see her parents, and then keep going. I'll always think of her death as murder, and if I stay, I'll avenge her. This is twice that he's stolen the woman that I love. If I see him again, I'm going to kill him. I don't care if it's murder. He deserves it, and I won't hesitate if I see him." She nodded and dropped the issue, asking if she could hug me before we said goodbye. I let her, but I didn't feel any of the comfort that a mother's hug should bring. Mike shrugged when she turned to look at him. "Sorry," he said softly. "I tried not to take sides in this whole thing. Dad should have let Pete kick the shit out of Billy when this all started. He might have gotten his head out of his, but in time to keep from killing a woman. You can't think he did that on purpose," she said, shocked. "No, I don't think he set out to kill someone," Mike said carefully. "I think he's been able to get away without paying attention to what he's doing for so long that he doesn't think he should have to. I hope Sabrina's parents sue him for wrongful death after they're done with his insurance company. He deserves to have to look at the consequences of his actions." She left soon after that, and we started getting everything ready. Most of the furniture was already gone, sold to friends and coworkers, and a few sold through Craigslist. We had our beds, and those were promised to different people for the day we left. We cleaned the apartment, packed everything except our clothes for the next day, and settled down for one last night in Denver. We were taking Mike's truck and Mary's car with us. I was going to bounce back and forth between the vehicles to keep both drivers company. We had a pair of walkie-talkies to keep in touch between the two vehicles without resorting to phones. We drove as far as Topeka that first day before we stopped. We got a hotel room with 2 beds and crashed as soon as we had something to eat. We were up early and on the road, hoping to make it as far as Memphis before we looked for a place to stay. Traffic was a bit of a pain since we were in midsummer. There was a fair amount of tourist traffic and enough road work to slow us down. We made Memphis, but we were all a little tired and short on patience. We ate in the hotel restaurant and turned in early. We had an apartment waiting for us when we got to Birmingham, and we could have pushed on. It was only a few hours away, but we didn't have furniture waiting for us, so we were going to be stuck putting things together for several hours before we could sleep. The next morning, we were on the road early and in our apartment before noon. Mike and I took the truck and went to get beds as a first step while Mary unpacked the car. We didn't get the most plush beds imaginable, but we got a queen for them and a full size for me. It was the biggest bed I'd ever slept in outside of the hotel beds, and it seemed immense. We got them strapped into the bed of the truck and drove back to get them put together. Mine just had a set of metal bed rails on casters. Mike and Mary had gotten an actual bed with a full frame though. I stared working on putting it together while Mike took Mary back to pick out some other furniture. We worked like that all day. One of us stayed in the apartment working while the others ran errands. Mary and I went for groceries, and then Mike and I went to buy electronics for the living room and the bedrooms. I didn't feel like I needed much, but I ended up with a TV and a PlayStation for the sake of playing movies from disc or Netflix. We had the internet and cable being installed next week, so we were offline for now. Life fell into a routine. All 3 of us were working. Our bills were minimal, and we were each making good money. Mary was a dental hygienist. Mike was a foreman for a construction company, and I was working in IT. We had plenty of money, and I put most of my extra cash aside. Life has a way of knocking me down when I build myself back up, though. Trouble started at work this time. I started getting calls at work that didn't say anything, just a few awkward minutes of hearing someone breathing, and then they hung up. It happened a few times a week for a month, and then I asked to have the line checked. It came back clean, but the calls persisted. I didn't give it any thought, but then I was distracted at home too. Mary was getting sick, morning sick. She took the test and confirmed that we were about to get a 4th member to the family. We celebrated, and they decided to get married. It would be a quick and small affair. They didn't want to wait and plan a big one, and they wanted to do it before Mary started to show. So I became Mike's best man, and Mary's cousin, Constance, was her maid of honor. We had a few friends we'd made in the area and Mary's family in attendance, and Mike sent a picture to Mom and Dad after the fact to let them know and told them why they'd chosen to do it so fast. That gave them our address, and we started getting a veritable flood of mail from Denver. Mom sent us each long letters explaining life there and how she hoped that we were happy in Birmingham. She told us that Billy and Linda were engaged and were planning to get married in the spring. My letter was very tactful in her hope that I would be getting married sometime sooner rather than later. I held down the fort for a week while they took a honeymoon in the Bahamas. I was proud to say that I didn't burn the place down, but I did start getting the same calls on the house phone. I finally called the cops and told them that I'd been getting the same phone calls at work. I asked what they could do to track down the source. They didn't leave me with a lot of faith in police work. They said they could put a trace on the line, but if the calls were only a few seconds long, then there wasn't much they could do to trace the call. I sighed and figured that I was going to have to get used to unwanted callers. The next day when I got the same call, I just decided to go with it. "Look, I don't know who this is," I told the person on the other end. "You clearly know me though. So you know that I haven't had the best time the last few years. Just leave me alone. Haven't I been through enough? Whatever you want from me, I don't have anything left to give." They hung up after that, but I suspected that I hadn't heard the last of them. When Mike and Mary came back, they were tanned and happy, but glad to be back. I told them reluctantly about the phone calls at work and at home. They were concerned about it and asked if I'd stepped on any toes at work. "Not that I know of," I said. "I can't think of anyone who'd know my work number and the number here and make calls like that. I mean, the contact numbers are on file in HR, but I can't imagine them calling my phone in the middle of the day to harass me." They nodded at that, and we tried to put it out of mind since there was nothing that we could do about it. I started to give some thought to moving out soon. With the baby on the way, the apartment wasn't going to fit the four of us. I kept those plans to myself for the time being and considered the problem for a time closer to Mary's due date. I wasn't going to leave them high and dry, but I was starting to think of my room as their nursery. I was going to have to go in time for us to repaint it and set up new furniture for the baby. Mary was just starting to get close to her launch day when I talked to them about it over dinner. "I've started looking for a place of my own," I told them lightly. "With the baby on the way, you guys are going to need my bedroom for a nursery." "We're not kicking you out," Mary said firmly. "No, you're not," I agreed. "I'm leaving on my own. You two are starting a family, and I want you to have the chance to do that right. I'll still be Uncle Pete, but the baby's going to need her own room." They looked relieved about my decision, which told me that they'd been agonizing over how to manage without more room. "I'll move out at the end of the month if I can find a decent place," I promised. "I don't need much. Just a bedroom, bath, and kitchen." They nodded and both thanked me. I was glad to do it for them. It was time for me to move out on my own anyway. The calls at work stopped for the most part, but every so often, I wondered about them. Just before Mary went in, they started again and I didn't know how to handle it anymore. I tried the cops. I tried to reason with them directly. Now they were back. I was having other problems at work that needed their own attention. My job was drying up. We were getting pressure to cut costs and every department in IT was looking hard at cutting out some of the full-time positions. It was suggested that they cut hours instead and make IT positions part-time. That would cut down on costs since the company wouldn't have to pay benefits. I told my boss that if that's the direction the company was planning to take, I'd like to ask for a recommendation now so I could start looking for something else. "Times are tough," he said with an apologetic shrug. "Sometimes we have to take the cuts to make it through." "Maybe so," I said mildly, "but I have a master's in computer sciences. If I'm going to be treated like a McDonald's employee, I'll go work there. I'm not going to do the job of an engineer if I'm not going to get paid for it. I worked my butt off and paid a lot of money for my degree. I deserve better than to get treated like this so the company can make more profit." He nodded, and by the end of the day, I had a recommendation letter to add to my collection. I started sending out my resume right away. I concentrated around Birmingham, but I also reached out to companies in LA and other parts of the country. I applied for teaching positions in computer science and IT jobs. I looked into web development companies and anywhere I thought I could make a career. I applied for jobs with municipalities and government departments and a number of other places. Dear listeners, the second part of this story will be released soon. Please share your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.